So Auschwitz work camp. Um, like I say, it used to have a big star on the top of it, but they decided to take it down, because it looked kind of Jewish or whatever, and everyone was being fussy about star, but there used to be on the top of it, it said Auschwitz or whatever, which basically says work will set you free, which is basically my motto. Pretty much, is that, you know, there's, there's freedom with work. Um, Anyway, at the top of it, there's a big star, and I forget one of the boys, one of the guys at the middle facility. It actually originally wasn't there. Um, it said something else, but then later on, when everything did really well, they put the work will set you free, and there was a big star on top because it was my facility. Like I said, we did a lot of stuff with the Auschwitz sites, like trying to invent a better way to build houses and buildings. Like they were doing, like I said, they were doing the first. Like carbon dioxide measuring and also hydrogen buildup measuring. They built this room that was sealed, and they put hydrogen gas inside of it and started building it up. So we could. And they did the first weather balloons at those sites, and we also did the first that led to the dirigibles and everything else. And we also did we also did like powdered eggs. That was another huge thing that came from that. Is that I was having them work with vacuum pumps. They mess around with vacuum pumps. Like I say, my engines, my steam engines, they're basically big pumps. And that's also how we do some carbon dioxide fizzy drinks or whatever. Is by using one of my old steam engines. They basically take a piston and they basically use two steam engines, and one of them is a pump. And that's one of the things that they invent or that they do, is that they use a steam engine and then two of the pistons to basically pump air or suck air. And that's also how some of the divers, when we're doing the diving experiments and stuff like that, they use one pump to pump, to one steam piston to push the ram back and forth, and then another one they set up for just pumping air down a tube. So basically they use, like I say, huge, I'm a big steam guy. Like really, 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 I love Steam. I just love it. I loved it. I put a huge amount of money, a huge amount of my money into Steam, basically. Because I thought that Steam was one of those things that they would never grow old. It's something that's always usable. And I just felt like it was one of the better, if I had to put my money in anything, Steam was one of the things I wanted to put my money into, because it's basically, you chop down a tree and you burn the wood, and anybody can run a steam engine basically, and there's always trees around. So I'm like, I want to put all my money into, I want to put a lot of my money into Steam research and Steam building basically, and that's what I did back then. I was like, I think that this is real technology, and I think this is really going to be useful for us. So as a whatever. I put a lot of money into Steam. And like I say, a lot of the Steam stuff, the steam turbines and everything else, like I say, it works with oil. A lot of the Irish people, when they're looking at the German plans and they're looking at the German stuff, they're like, you know, we could probably make this work with oil, and stuff like that. There's a lot of plans and a lot of schematics and a lot of stuff that was basically steam oriented. There's a lot of little motors and stuff like that. We did a lot of stuff with steam. We built like little motors, and we built, and I felt like steam was a really useful thing to have, and really thing. I thought it would never grow old. I was like, steam is probably going to be around forever, basically, because it's just, it's how simple is it? You heat up water, apply a heat source to what's it called, and it just burns, And it doesn't burst. It just you get pressure out of it. Anyone can do it, and water is everywhere. So it doesn't need anything complicated. It doesn't need anything that you can't have. So I was like, I think I want to manufacture and specialize in steam. So I basically, I spent a lot of stuff, and actually, believe it or not, like I say, it's funny because steam outpaced engine technology because you're able to use lower grade steel with steam. So for the longest time, like my steam engines and everything else was just like there was steam, and then there was these other engines, because these other my steam engines were like way up here with power and everything else and usability, and like the combustion engines, the fuel wasn't there yet. It takes too long And that's another reason why I went with steam, is because I was like, steam doesn't use a complicated fuel source. Wood, alcohol, oil, just about anything burns and is good with steam. So I was like, steam is the way to go. This is where I want to put my money. So I put more money into steam and stuff than I did in everything else. And I was like, well, these are kind of like back burner, an engine if we can get to work, but they didn't have the power, they didn't have the metal technology. Until you get like really good metal, engines suck. Engines literally suck until you get like really good metal. Once you have really good metal, then yeah, the combustion engines work great. But until you have good metal, it's like they suck, and they suck really bad. I mean, they're smelly, they're this, they're that. It's just like, it gets to the point where you're like, why even bother? Steam works great. Steam. Especially if you're working at a shipyard or you're doing a lot of things. I mean, steam works really, 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 really well. Once it's built, it works well. And a lot of the oil things, and that's another thing, is clean up on steam. Unless you get hit by a steam jet of hot water, then it sucks. But other than that, steam works. It worked great. And like I said too, I put the steam mostly in cold regions, like in Alaska and all these other places where it's cold anyway. And that's another thing. When it's cold and you're using steam, you actually get like a power boost, or it works a lot better, or something like that. Anyway, though, I always thought that the colder regions and the high altitude regions were best for steam. So I specialized in steam up in those regions, and figured, well, steam will last longer up there than it will, down here. At sea level, engines work better, and eventually, it'll replace steam. But so that's why I went with more money in steam, and steam at higher altitudes and in hot and in cold regions. In wet regions and stuff like that, I went with more engine technology and other stuff, because I was like, okay, now I want these guys to specialize in that, because that will put out more, because that will, because then the long-term, short-term benefit and that cost analysis is better, because, steam will last longer in these other areas, but not this area. So I tried to put more money on steam in those areas, just where to put my money. And so, I was directing people to do that. And then for the engine technology, I was like, I still spent a lot of money on engines and stuff, but I knew it was going to take a long time before we get the fuel good enough. And it did take a little while, and then we got the stills, and then things started, plus, like I say, the demand, well, for certain things, like big trains, the things that I do with mining and shipping and all that other stuff, and big ships, steam just works better. It's just better to build it once and build it forever. And then the steam engines actually did last 150 years or 200 years, and they were working great. You just replace the parts and it works great, and then check the thing. And like I say, there's still steam engines around today, and it takes a long time for a steam vessel to wear out. So that's why with a lot of my countries, I was like steam, and because I mean, with electricity, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's a lot of things that break, and another thing is a lot of my engineers also, throughout the years, are like, we like the steam engines just fine, because you put a log in, it works. It turns on every morning. A lot of the electrical steam engines. I mean, a lot of the electrical diesel engines, and a lot of electrical systems. I mean, there were problems. There's electrical shorts. There's fuses. There's all this stuff. So a lot of my engineers, for the longest time, were like, we like the steam engines. They work great. You just heat them up in the morning, and then you head on out, and it works just fine. So a lot of steam actually lasted. I was really glad I put a lot of money into steam, because there was this point where I was like, should I spend the money to build better steam engines, or should I just go with diesel? I was like, no, let's spend the money, So I dedicated this whole shop, and that's how we get like all those other ones, all those fast steam engines and all that other stuff, because I'm like, what, let's kick it up a notch. Like steam, everyone was saying steam is dead, steam is over. Everyone was selling out of steam. Like back in 1920s or 1900s, everyone was basically selling out of steam. They're like, sell, dumb, no, it's over.